Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Certainly glad that you're here joining us tonight. It is Tuesday, July 12th, and first of all, we want to introduce you to your City Council.
Councilmember Selberg.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Erpenbach.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Councilors, thanks so much for all you do and for being here tonight. We are very, very blessed to have back with us Reverend David Kramer. He's with the All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. He often comes here and leads us with our blessing, leads us in prayer to kick our meeting off. And so, Reverend David, thanks for coming back. What we'd ask you to do is to stand, please, for Reverend David's invocation, and then remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. And before, though, Reverend David starts, I do have just some thoughts, and that is he's done servicing as the interim clergy for All Souls here in Sioux Falls. And guess what, Council? The Reverend is leaving us. He's moving to Wisconsin, and we're going to miss you. And again, thank you for your prayers, thanks for your thoughts, and for all that you do. Reverend David? It's in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Council. It is true, in fact, as they say, interims come pre-fired, and so this is my last month with you. But I want to say, what a beautiful city. I have so enjoyed serving here and meeting everyone here. The beautiful parks, the bike trails, the artwork, the restaurants. I think most of all, the sense of well-being here has just been such a blessing. I want to thank you all. I have to say today, however, along with everyone else I talked to, I have been in great turmoil over the events in our nation for the last month or more. And I want to say that, I want to tell you that I participated in the Black Lives Matter March here on Saturday, and I, along with many others in the march, shook the hands of the officers who guarded the intersections as we passed. I am so grateful for their presence. I think that we can do no better than to stand in solidarity with one another in peace in times like this. This is the legacy of Gandhi. It's the legacy of Martin Luther King. This is the lesson of Jesus. So please join me in prayer. Gracious God, we are grieving for the loss of life across our nation, grieving for their families. We are grieving for our nation, which seems split in 1,000 ways, and grieving for ourselves, who seem powerless to fix this. As people of faith, as leaders of this community, help us find a way out of this violence. Let this violence not spread to this city. Help us find ways to speak to one another that do not push away. Help us not to prejudge. Help us to see the love in each other's faces. Help us heal the wounds. In the name of all that is holy, we are grateful for this life, this good earth, the gift of human community. May we learn to live in peace. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, thank you very much. We're now going to move to our consent agenda. Any motions or changes to that?
Mr.
Councilor
Mayor?
Starr.
Yes. The minutes for item 14 from last week's City Council meeting were incorrectly listed as a motion to approve. I'd ask that it be corrected to reflect a motion to defer.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate that correction. Appreciate that. Council, anything else, any other comments on the minutes or anything else on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda, Erpenbach.
Second, Starr.
Councilor Box made a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Starr. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Our regular agenda for tonight, any changes to that?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Erpenbach.
Council Chair Rolfing has made a motion to move forward with our regular agenda tonight, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Thank you. That has also passed 8-0. Thank you. Again, welcome. We have some new faces in the audience tonight. That's always a good sign. Thanks so much for being here tonight at your city council meeting. This is an opportune time for you to engage the council. There are some items coming up later on in the agenda, second readings, where you'll have the ability to speak if you deem fit. But if there's another topic you want to chat about now, it's a great time. Just really two things we'd ask. Number one, just tell us who you are. And then number two, if you please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Any comments, folks? Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm used to being in school in a classroom where students have to respond with the high energy. Good evening. Good evening. Okay, we'll move on. I get it. My name is Clara Hart. I live at 4906 Kalin Place. That's Lincoln County. I'm here with a heavy heart, and unfortunately, Reverend Kramer took most of my comments. I know him. I go to his church. I'm here today because, more as a reporter, on Friday I was part of that virgil that took place at Law Enforcement Center, where quite a few young people, the millennials, that showed up, and a few of us over 50, including Councilwoman Teresa Staley was there. It was nice to see you and to see someone in the elected office show up and show support and caring. What we took from that is that since we met because we were conflicted, we were grieving, we're still grieving. And we were showing our support with the people, the families in Dallas, Texas, and the families in Baton Rouge, and families of that man in Falcon Heights in Minnesota. So my comment is this. On Friday, most of us took parts to present. And my observation and what I took from that, there was a lot of anger from some of the young men. There were concerns that some things happening here in town, but they don't know where to go and share their concerns. That was one. And Councilwoman Staley was able to clarify that. But those are not the type of people we're going to see here standing in front of you like me and sharing their concerns. They're not, because they're afraid that someone is going to get even because it has happened. So they're not saying things that have not happened. They have had experiences before, trusting people where they ended up getting stabbed on the back. So I've worked with a lot of police officers here, or law enforcement, like I prefer to call them, in the school system, helping immigrant families understand that men in blue are their friends. That was my work for 16 years, and I was proud of it. And on the other side, to let the officers know you have to work hard to assure them and earn their trust by showing that that's what you are, to support them and assure them that they're safe in your hands, that you're not going to rough them up. Now, what I've seen lately is this polarization in the age of social media. There's just so many nasty comments going on. Some are for police officers, some are for the others, and we shouldn't. We're all made up of a human race. I think we should unify. We should come together and honor those lives that were lost as human beings or as a human race. And what I would like to do, I ask you, all of you, it starts here from this office, to show leadership by starting a dialogue. There are people who are hurting, but they don't have a place to go and share their concerns. If you can do that, I would really appreciate. And I thank you for your work, and I thank our police department. They are all my friends, like I said. They do amazing work. We don't want what is happening in another state to happen here. This is my home. I've lived here 27 years. I'm proud to call Sioux Falls my home for a very, very long time, and I'm going to vote for a very, very long time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Clara. Appreciate it. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome. Welcome.
All right. Yes, thank you, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. My name is Josh Walcher. Grew up here in Sioux Falls. Went to high school at Roseville High School. Will admit the extent of my political engagement in high school is getting an Instagram picture with Mayor Huther at the 4th of July parade. But I'm excited to be back here and after college making a difference in my home state.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, my name is Justin Otoski. I just recently moved up here to Sioux Falls, and we're here today to talk to you about Amendment V. It's going to be on the November election.
Okay.
Great. So I'll start off with the problem. You know, partisan politics in this country is clearly an issue of grave importance in today's political climate. More and more political parties are shutting citizens out of the ability to vote in our elections. More specifically, here in South Dakota, 109,000 independents are basically shut out of the primary process. This is a problem because South Dakota, only 20% of our elections are decided in the general election. The rest are either uncompetitive or there's no challenger at all running. You know, and this is related to the fact that independents can't vote. Who are these independents? Myself, veterans like Justin, neighbors, taxpayers who pay taxes for a system that they can't participate in. And we were warned about this. One of our founding fathers, George Washington, was quoted as saying, "Political parties will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and usurp for themselves the reins of government." In addition, the namesake of my high school, Teddy Roosevelt, the bosses of the Democratic Party and the bosses of the Republican Party alike have a closer grip than ever before on the party machines in the state and the nation. And I don't think anyone would disagree that that has improved in today's current age. So it's a problem. Justin's going to take it from here.
Yes. So Josh has talked a little bit about, you know, what the problem of partisan politics is. You know, so how do we fix that? We're here with Amendment V, and we think that is going to help change, you know, partisan politics here in South Dakota. It was put on the ballot by a broad coalition of Democrats, Independents, and Republicans from across the entire state. And you know, it will help, it will change the way our state elections are run. And the way it works is it's very simple. It would make all state elections, state primary elections, nonpartisan, just the way all of you were elected here at the local level. We think that this can, you know, kind of give the power back to the people and away from the party. It's worked in Nebraska for over 80 years. It works all across the state at local levels, and you know, it works right here, just like how all of you guys ran when you came for student, excuse me, for city council. So, we really think that we can give the power back to the people and away from the big parties.
Great. And this is obviously going to run into some opposition, and both the political parties here in our state will most likely resent the fact that they'll be giving power away from themselves and back to the voters. One of the issues may be transparency. To that, we would say, this is South Dakota. We know who's running for the ballot in most instances. Additionally, parties will still be able to endorse candidates. It's just that we're going to make sure that candidates are running based off of principles and not because of a letter next to their name.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Is there any questions?
Josh Justin, we thank you for your time as well. You bet.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Where's the mic now? Okay.
Thank you.
Whoops. Uh-oh.
Take your time, sir.
Not talking.
There you go. You got it now.
My name is Bob Reeby.
Bob.
Mayor Heathler, members of the City Council audience, good evening. I'm here because my lifestyle demands no less. And it can be expressed in two sentences, and that is this. Dr. Mike Murdoch said, never complain about what you permit. When you permit things without trying to change them, you simply end up going down the road to nowhere. It's never a place to be. Also, what you adapt to, you have to. I've not in my life ever been one to adapt to anything, especially when I know that I can reach higher to obtain something better, because I believe that it's better to have your goals set high and only obtain some than have your goals set too low and obtain all of them. With that being said, I'm here tonight to talk to you about the fireworks ordinance. There was much hullabaloo about, before the holiday, the radio station had it on, it was on TV, all about what they were going to do. We were going to crack down on fireworks users. We're going to quit being nice and start handing out tickets. Well, I was dismayed to find that, thanks to the library staff at the public library downtown, I was amazed to find that in the July 5th article of the Argus Leader, it is stated that the only kind of fireworks that are acceptable are snakes and sparklers. Anything with a report or projectile or launching component is simply not allowed. Yet the article further states that the police have to see somebody lighting a firework before they can cite them. I think this needs to be changed. I think that if a police officer is called to a situation where fireworks are being set off, if that officer sees that somebody has fireworks and the container that they're in has been opened, I think that should be enough to allow the officer to cite that person and take the firecrackers. While fireworks are indeed legal in the state of South Dakota because they're not legal, the ones I mentioned are not legal here, then I think the law needs to be tougher on the people that violate it. Thank you.
Bob, great job. Great job. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
My name is Bruce Norton, and I'm here to discuss the overgrown cattail problem on the Prairie Green Golf Course pond adjacent to the 15th and 16th holes. The growth has become very unsightly, caused areas where garbage and debris are collecting. The whole pond could potentially become nothing but cattails and unhealthy idle water soon. I have lived at my home for 17 years and never felt the problem was that big a deal until within the last couple of years. In early June, I opened a ticket with the city, and on June 22nd, Andy Berg came to my house to discuss the issue with me. He was joined by Norm Parsons from the Prairie Green Golf Course. At that time, Andy presented an eradication plan, which I was unaware of until that moment, from late last summer that involved Mike Sheehan, a neighbor of mine, 4 houses east, Tom Janza, manager of the Dakota Golf, and the city's drainage engineer. Tom and the drainage engineer admitted to Mr. Sheehan that they needed to do something with the growth of the cattails as it is their responsibility to do so. After some research, they concluded that the only way to get rid of them long-term was to excavate them. The above plan was contingent on the pond freezing before they could implement it. Well, the freeze did not happen and before it snowed, and they never executed that plan. Plus, it only included the area around Mr. Sheehan's home. Andy told me at our June 22nd meeting that to include our house would mean bringing heavy equipment along the back of the houses by the pond, which is the city easement, down to my house, and doing so likely damaging property along the way. Plus, it is still needed to freeze in a manner that would allow this to happen. I shared it doesn't seem acceptable to depend on a plan that involves heavy equipment, lots of damage, and the cooperation of winter weather. The lack of the right freeze could push the problem into a third year or more. I advised Andy, it seems to me the solution needs to be somewhere between the heavy equipment and freeze option and doing nothing, which I felt was, I was being manipulated into agreeing to that by the aspect of saying, well, you're going to damage your property, maybe you don't want to do this. Andy also told me I can expect this type of thing living on a pond. I shared back, maybe this is what I should expect living next to city property. We agreed that they would discuss the matter internally and see how to proceed. After meeting with Andy, I Googled how to kill cattails on a pond and found numerous resolution options, YouTube videos, and so forth that appeared to be inexpensive, non-invasive, and also not dependent on the right freeze conditions or the use of heavy equipment. After not hearing back from anyone, I opened another ticket last week to see what was happening. I appreciated hearing back from Councilwoman Staley on that point, at that point on this matter, and her invitation to come before the council tonight. I'm interested in being part of the problem, or part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I'm urging that we seek a positive outcome for everybody involved. I feel an entire pond solution is the right perspective here, and urge you to consider a way forward that is expedient, low cost, and restores the beauty of the pond area. I, along with my neighbors, would also invite you to visit our area to see the problem for yourself. I do have some pictures if you'd like to see them. That's the cattail growth as you're looking from my immediate neighbor to the, looking back to where my property is. And up until a couple of years ago, those cattails were just right against the shoreline. Now they have grown all the way out and grown that far into the pond in the last couple of years. That's an example of the debris and the collection that idle water and the lack of water flow around the pond due to all the cattails creates. And this is a picture you could take across all the neighbors that have the pond. Got a couple more here. This is the one looking back, can't see it, can you? To my house where there's all sorts of cattails. It's not to be, can't see that very well, sorry about that. Last one's a Google image of the area that we're talking about there. So that's the pond that we're being referred to, and then all the houses along there with the cattail issues. Some of the neighbors have taken remediation issues that include killing the weeds and doing things that might be proper for the environment, and I didn't want to do that. I thought it was the city's responsibility to work on this and see if we can't find a way forward.
Bruce, thank you very much. Thank you. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Robert Colby. I'm a veteran of the original ambulance wars. I was part of the policymakers back in those days when we were trying to institute a citywide and countywide ambulance service. It's good, interesting to go from a policymaker back then to a near-term user today. We had to deal with Mayor Hansen at that point in time, and he was about as closed as a political person as you could have. No one ever knew what he was going to do until after the announcements were made in the newspaper. He pushed very hard that the REMSA would be used to make sure that there was quality in the ambulance service, and the county and the city council at the time went along with that particular means of operation. REMSA hired a person at $80,000, if my memory serves me, in order to make sure that there was a quality assurance and that the 911 response was good and accurate for the city and the county. And those days, that was pre-computer. And I understand, I don't know, what is REMSA today, $250,000, $500,000, and you've got a pencil-pushing person doing things that a simple computer program could do today, and there wouldn't be any variance in the judgment, and the reporting would be accurate. It would say either the ambulance complies or it does not comply. There's no softening of any of the responses that ambulances do. Now, I've heard about this assurance and that there's been this code 0, and that there were somewhere, 70 of these in 10 months, which is 7 a month or about 2 a week. Now, being a near-term user, if I have a heart attack, you best pray that I die, because if I don't, there will be a lawsuit, because the compliance is to be as close to 100% as possible. Now, I understand that there may not be ambulances available if there was a major air crash at the airport, or if Timothy McVeigh would have had the chance to blow up the federal building, which was on his number 2 on his list. I can understand that. But in the normal course of operation, if you have code 0s, if I don't die, it's going to be tough Sheminsky, because I will sue everybody and anybody that has anything to do with this. And from what I'm hearing is that the person who wrote the RFP was in bed with the person who wound up with the ambulance service, and that doesn't bode well. We had a document that we put together, the city and the county, back 25 years ago, and when I left now 6, 7 years ago, we hadn't complied with all of those things that we were recommended to make sure that we were in compliance and that we were doing a good service for our citizenry. Now, somebody isn't informing you of what's going on if the news media has to dig out all of these things and say they're not in compliance. And if the ambulance service comes to you and says, we're doing great, we want a raise. It's like a baseball player saying, you know, when I hit the ball, I always hit singles. I've been hitting a couple doubles. I want an increase in pay. And they don't tell you how many times they strike out or how many times they pop up. Both are correct, but you can't have a good service and then have one that's been doing what it's been doing here. Now, guess what would happen if it's just me who says that I might do something in a legal action? Can you imagine if you go up to the Washington Pavilion, you've got all those beautiful portraits of the baby boomers up there? What happens if one of those baby boomers has a heart attack and it's a code 0? If you think that I might be a little bit irritated, I bet you some of those people might be really irritated. Something needs to be done, and we don't need people to die. When Jay Major came on and was trying to get into the service here, the people's general consensus was that he liked lights, sirens, and speed. And they said, what happens if someone were to die? What happens if? Now we have gone, 20, 25 years later, and where are we? Right back where we started.
Mr. Colby, thank you very much, sir.
And as Harry
Folks,
Truman
is there
said,
anybody
if you
else who
can't-
wanted to engage the
If
council?
you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Welcome.
Hello,
Council. Hello, Council. I am Danielle Merrow. I am the owner of the 300 building. Oops, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better? Okay, thank you. I'm Danielle Merrow, and I am the owner of the 300 building. I am here to defend the 300 building and my tenants who have been leasing the 300 building for many years and are proud to operate our businesses out of the 300 building. Today there was an informational meeting given to you all, and there was a great deal of misinformation given at that time presented to council regarding the 300 building. For example, I'd like to show some slides. First of all, they talked about the elevators being pretty inoperable and you couldn't even use them. Hopefully some of you have been to the 300 building and have seen the elevators work fine. They're very operational and they have a 40-inch clearance. We are safe. Our building is very operational and the elevators work. Also, I wanted to address the deck to deck or ceiling to floor distance. I have measured this myself and with others as a witness. The decking is 142 inches as shown in the slide, which in other words is 11 feet 10 inches. We were told there was no way possible by Jeff Hazard that it could be that. It was 11.4. He is incorrect. Also, I would like to address the stairwell integrity, that it was addressed that it should be blown out. These are what the stairwells look like on the north and the south entrances and exits. These are safe stairwells. These photos show that the stairwells, both north and south, are made of concrete and steel safety rails on all levels. Each staircase is 42 inches wide with 84 inches or 7 feet landings. The stairs themselves have a rise and a run of 6 3/4 and 11 inches deep, which is well within standard building codes. During our ownership, we have been making capital improvements to the building. We have replaced the roof coverings with new insulation and rubber, and we are constantly making improvements to the building as recommended by our engineers and architects. The statements made about this building are not based on facts. The building is far from demolition status, and there may be a conflict of interest with the architect and engineer evaluating the 300 building that is versus the new admin building using the same people. As a developer, I would question that. And I would hold that to the council to also question that. Thank you.
Danielle, thank you as well. Welcome.
Scott Arisman, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'd also like to touch a little bit on what I saw this afternoon on this presentation. She said, the lady that just spoke said that there's a possible conflict of interest. I don't think there is a possible conflict of interest. There's a conflict of interest, period. These are the people that are hired to build a brand new building, and they're the same people to evaluate a different building. They're going to make a lot of money building a brand new building. Why on earth would they ever suggest to you to go and take a used building and redo it? There's been talk that even using their review is extremely unethical, and anybody within the administration who thought it was a good idea to have them do the review should be brought up an ethics complaint. Seriously. Why would anyone think that was a good idea and not use a third party that has nothing to do with building the new building or has anything to do with the company at all? But besides that, it just don't add up. We're going to build a brand new building that is not completed at all. The third floor is going to be a shell. The fourth floor doesn't exist. It's going to cost the same amount, according to them, if you use their numbers, to take a completed building and remodel it, and have a completed building with tenants who will be paying money to be in the building and help us pay for the renovation, instead of taking out a bond that we have to pay off. But here's the most important thing of all this. With technology over the next 10, 20, 30 years, the city should be really concentrating on less employees that are better and more quality, pay them better, have them do a better job. I'd like to take our engineering department, for instance. I don't know how many engineers work for the city. I've heard somewhere between 20 and 29. I'm probably completely wrong, but that's what I've heard. But every time something comes up, we have to hire a consultant. We had to hire a consultant engineer to design a handrail for a pedestrian bridge. It's about time the city has quality employees and cuts back on the number of employees we have. And with technology, we're not going to have to have maybe 1,200 employees over the next 30 years. That number is going to go down. We know that in the manufacturing industry, that the jobs in this country have gone down and down and down because of technology. It'll be the same way with government. Hillary Clinton was interviewed recently on this note about what would she do about the officers and the problems that we might have with the police forces. She said the first thing she would do is budget $1 billion to retrain officers and train them properly. And as a city government, we should be concentrating on that too, having good, solid employees who know what they're doing, so we don't have to hire a freaking consultant every time we need to build a handrail.
Scott, stay professional.
Yeah.
Please.
And lastly, it is actually cheaper to lease space over the next 30 years than to pay a bond for 30 years on a building we may not need. It is. There is nothing in city charter that says the city must own a building for its city employees. We've leased space, we're leasing space. There's no reason why we need to build this building. The only reason I can see why we need to build this building is because a couple of people in this town need another job to skip to from building the event center and the pool. That's it. Otherwise, I highly suggest you vote to move the first reading along tonight and vote no on it when it comes to the second reading. And one small comment about the man who's talked about the fireworks. The 14 tickets from 600 fire calls seemed ridiculous, and the police explained that they got to catch people in the act. I understand. Why not use undercover officers? When somebody sees a police car pulling up with the lights on, they're going to put the fireworks away. Just a suggestion.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you. Welcome. Anybody else want to engage the council? Mr. Danielson?
Bruce Danielson. I had sat through part of the meeting this afternoon, and I was here listening on what's supposed to be our live streaming system that didn't really want to work very well today. So I had to come down here and finish watching it, and it makes me think of we're building a new building, or you want to build a new building, and we can't even build a data processing system, SIRE. We can't build a website that works because as we go out there, we still keep finding broken links, and it's really tiring. So this afternoon's meeting, as others have talked about, just was insulting to our sensibilities. It made me think back to when the event center was being finished up, and we were making the case for the siding that needs to be fixed. And we ended up with a $5,000 independent report done by a gentleman from Minnesota who happened to be a part-time employee of the contractor that was putting the building up. We never heard anything more about that report. What happened to the $5,000? Is it in the budget somewhere? I kind of kept watching the consent agenda to see who got to pay for it. Apparently, the contractor must have eaten the $5,000 as part of our final bill. We won't see that until we see what the change orders finally are. Which brings back the construction manager at risk problem and the way that this whole admin building, swimming pool, event center, parking ramp, all these buildings are being built, that we have no control over any part of the construction. There's lip service given to this council having some say in it, but there isn't any. We keep getting snow jobs from city officials. We have so many conflicts of interest, as these others have talked about. When you know the construction of many of these older buildings, and I first did a project in the 300 building in 1972, and it was a solid building then, and it's still a solid building. Sure, buildings age, but that building's been well taken care of for many years. And I've seen it as I've gone in and worked there on other projects and worked with customers and vendors. So to be going out and wasting a large amount of money for an 80-year building that under a lot of today's construction methods, if we look at the event center as an indicator, that aren't going to last 80 years. You know, and by the time the bonds are paid on the event center, it's going to have to be a major rehab. And we aren't putting any money aside for it either. I had a lot more to talk about tonight, but I think everybody else has covered it. Thank you.
Folks, anybody else want to engage the council? Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Council, now I'm going to move on to item 5, please.
Item 5, deferred from the City Council meeting of June 21st, 2016. Transfer of 2016 retail liquor license with Sunday sales and video lottery terminals from Commonwealth Gaming and Holdings Corp., Deuces 3, 5201 East Arrowhead Parkway, to Commonwealth Gaming and Holdings Corp., Deuces 3, 5117 East Arrowhead Parkway, with conditional use 41/48/2016, being approved on March 2nd, 2016, pending final inspections for fire, health, and building services.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. Item 5 is a transfer request which will move the license from an existing building on that property to a new building that is under construction right now. On March 15th, I'll just remind you that the council approved retail wine and retail beer licenses for room 2 of the building, with the requirement that there's full, complete wall separation in between the two establishments. So the applicant is here. I also want to mention that this item, if approved tonight, will not be sent to the state until all of the final inspections are complete, and that would include fire, health, and building services. And I wait till I get confirmation from each of those departments before I do anything with the license.
Jamie, thank you. Council, any comments on this item? Councilor Staley?
I needed to make a disclosure that I had a conversation yesterday with the attorney, Drew Duncan, and we did talk about items number 5 and 6. And I reached out to him because I wanted to tell him I appreciated the efforts that he has shown this week in trying to make a good faith gesture at improving the situation. He invited us to stop by any time and look at the facilities, and we also talked about having the issue of having ashtrays within the facility as well.
Council, would anybody want to make Councilor Starr?
Absolutely. Is there someone, Jamie, is someone from Building Services here? Is Ron? I didn't. We had some discussion at one point about the solid wall that's separating the two rooms, and at least a report that there was a different material or that it wasn't being completed as a solid wall. And I'm interested in hearing a little more about that.
I did receive an email that Ron Bell is on vacation, so he's not here tonight. But I did receive an email that the inspector had gone out and there was a fence or something in the cooler itself. That's the only part that wasn't a solid wall. But from what I understand from an email after that there is going to be a full wall put in there, and that is the expectation of the inspectors per Ron Bell, that when they go out and make the final.
I guess maybe we need to hear from the applicant to tell us exactly what was going on in that process.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Drew Duncan, Representative of Commonwealth Gaming. Timely question, Councilman Starr. As I understand it, building services was out today or yesterday. There is a solid wall up. I don't know how much this body wants to hear context as to what got us to a solid wall. We understand that there's an ordinance that suggests that the wall needs to be solid. It was open. The original plans didn't call for a solid wall. After discussions with the council and the need to comply with the ordinance, that wall was put in, I think, last week. Building services has been in. I don't have any idea if it looks or it doesn't look like the other portions of the wall. Quite honestly, because it's a newer piece of the construction and it's not finished yet, it may not look like the rest. I'm certainly not an expert in construction, so I can't answer that. But there is a solid wall there, and unless something changes with the posture of the council, Commonwealth Gaming intends to keep the solid wall there.
I do have two things. The first is I do have an email from Ron Bell from a few days ago before he went on vacation that confirms essentially what Mr. Duncan has just told us, that a complete separation will be in place prior to final inspection and occupancy. And I do have to make a disclosure. I did talk to Mr. Duncan on the phone on Sunday. We talked about both of these items, 5 and 6, and I just relayed my concern and my hope that he would keep working with the applicant, and we talked a little bit about the video lottery issue and also about the smoking issue at both locations.
Council, would anybody want to make a motion on this item?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Staley.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve item number 5, seconded by Councilor Staley. Councilor Neitzert.
I do want to say, since I voted no on the last one and it was on suitable person grounds, that I need to justify why I'm going to vote yes on it this time. I am going to give some leeway because I'm feeling pretty confident that their attorney is guiding them in the right direction, and I think they deserve a shot here. So I'm going to give them that shot.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
No.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 7-1. Item 6.
Deferred from the City Council meeting of July 5th, 2016, renewal of a 2016-17 retail malt beverage license for Crown Gaming, Inc., Crown Casino Central 2, 1721 South Minnesota Avenue.
Jamie?
I do not have any additional information on this one, but I know that last week you had asked for a plan, which I believe was shared with the council, and I believe the applicant, Drew Duncan, is also here to speak on that plan.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could have Mr. Duncan come forward, please.
Drew?
Thank you. I just would like you just to reiterate the Crown Gaming smoking policy and just kind of walk us through that just briefly. I know we requested that of you last time, and so we appreciate you sending it to us in advance, but we just want to walk through that a little bit.
I'd be happy to. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I have to reiterate what I told Councilwoman Staley and Councilman Neitzert with regards to this issue. It's my first attempt at writing a smoking policy. Essentially what we would like to do, or what we would like to implement, and I really need to tell the council that this is a draft. We are very open to working with anyone who suggests that we're not, that has good ideas to implement those in the policy. I would assume that the policy as it exists right now, which I'll talk about in a second, is probably going to be predominantly the policy, but if anyone has any good ideas, we're more than happy to discuss them. The major part of the policy is if someone smokes in our establishments, they're going to be asked to put out the cigarette. If they refuse to do so, law enforcement will be contacted. If we find that staff has been breaking the smoking policy in regards to the allowing people to smoke or smoking themselves in the establishment, they will be reprimanded, and that reprimand can include suspension without pay, up to termination. I really don't say that in any attempt to throw our employees under the bus or not reiterate to make it seem that we are not partners with our employees. We are. We need to inform them of our policy. We're going to when the policy is final, hopefully after, if anyone has any suggestions after tonight's meeting, we plan to educate each and every one of our employees in Crown and Commonwealth, which is somewhere around 80 employees of the policy, and have them sign off that they have acknowledged it and understand it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the other, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yeah, please.
one of the other items that we talked about was when there was a review by the police department that had stopped into a few places, and this one was didn't have the issues, but I'm talking about as the ownership as a whole, that there were ashtrays in the establishments. I just want confirmation if those have been removed and put outside for their smoking pleasures outside, or how that those will not, I mean, they obviously didn't get there by themselves.
No, the policy would be no ashtrays inside.
Okay.
And I didn't put that in the policy. If that's one of the ideas that the council has moving forward, that's something that's something we would consider.
When I obviously see, a benefit in having ashtrays available to take them outside to smoke so they don't litter, but obviously the intent is not to have ashtrays inside so that I can sit and play video lottery and smoke and have a cocktail at the same time.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we, as both of the principals in Crown, or as one of the principals in Crown Gaming and both of the principals in Commonwealth Gaming have told me, we continue to have those Mr. Smoke things or whatever outside, stand-up smoking repositories where you put your cigarette after you're done with it. Those certainly, unless, of course, we're in fear of theft, they do not come inside.
Thank you.
Councilor Muck.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for walking alongside these folks with this process. This is one of those times when it's tough to be a city council member because we're really tasked with enforcing state law. And it's a difficult spot that we're in, and I recognize that it's a difficult spot that you're in. I also recognize that you're saying to me over and over again that this is a draft policy for the smoking. And I think you know that you're really in the spotlight for the entire industry in this community right now. And so my concern is that if I vote to approve this license and it's a draft policy that's never finalized and never signed, I don't have any recourse anymore to make your client comply with that policy and get it signed. And so that's where I'd like to hear you talk about, I kind of agree with Councilor Neitzer that, we're going to cut you some slack. I'm sure that we are, but I'm very concerned that we're still just looking at a draft policy that still has some grammar errors and some spelling issues. And so I'm like, what are you going to do?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that's why I left it a draft. In this is not on the principles of Crown Gaming and Commonwealth Gaming. It's a decision I made in speaking with some of you to keep it a draft in case there was any of you that I hadn't had a chance to speak to that would have ideas for me to put in the council or to put in the policy. Yeah, it does make me a little uncomfortable that I'm the poster boy for this policy now. I'm not a big fan of being in the spotlight, but I can tell you that it was my decision and my decision alone to keep it a draft in case that there are other ideas that come in this week. But our intention is, if there are no further ideas, I will finalize that policy tomorrow in my office. We will start talking to our employees about it and getting their acknowledgement and signatures as soon as tomorrow afternoon or Friday or whenever the principals in Crown Gaming and Commonwealth have a business meeting or get to that particular location. And in furtherance of your question, every year you have renewal time. Obviously, you're seeing a transfer, which you just let. It would be a perfect question, I think, and I don't want to put it off that far, and I guess it sounds like a deferral to me, but it's a perfect question to ask again. And again, you have my cell phone number and my email. If you'd like to check in with me later in the week and figure out where we're at with it, I'd be happy to answer. Happy to take your call and happy to answer that.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Conley.
Thank you. I have, I'm glad to hear that you've stated that this is a draft and you're open to revisions, amendments, because I do have some questions regarding the paragraph. It's the fourth or fifth paragraph of your policy starting management at Crown Gaming shall post signs at all locations notifying employees, guests, and other persons of the designated smoking areas. And I'm going to ask for opinion from Attorney Fifley here in a moment, because I know in October 23rd of 2015, then again in April 30th of 2016, Norm Lingle, Executive Director of South Dakota Lottery, very clearly stated that the lottery, in one case, I'll read from the letter, the lottery requests that you cease operating tobacco stores at any of your licensed video lottery establishments where the tobacco store is located within the legal description of the alcohol license by October 30th, 2015. That continues. Then and that was the October 23rd, 2015. April 30th, 2016, in the fourth paragraph, that particular letter, Mr. Lingle clearly states, let me be clear, video lottery terminals may not be placed in a tobacco retail store. Since tobacco retail stores could be designated as smoking areas, am I not correct? Has that clear separation taken place? And my question is, does this particular, and that's where I'm asking for opinion from Attorney Fifley, if the paragraph that I had indicated that I have some questions about, does that cover the separation of those two areas?
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I was not prepared to be a drafter on the spot here. However, I've drafted a number of personnel and employment policies in my prior life in private practice. What I would suggest is the council put an amendment with a condition on this that the applicant shall comply with all tobacco and video lottery laws and regulations, as well as any directives by the South Dakota Lottery Commission. That should then cover any of those issues from the two letters from the South Dakota Lottery Commission. There's quite a number of administrative rules that cover these types of things, and that should definitely, I mean, it's inherent in the license, but in terms of greater assurance for the public and also for the council, I believe you'd be better off putting it as a condition, specific condition here.
And is that acceptable to the applicant? If you could address that, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, absolutely. We have to do that to keep our license with the state. We would be happy to do that with the city council.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'd be happy to work with city attorney's office to do that as well.
Council, would anybody want to make a motion on this item?
I believe that we should make an amendment.
You need to move to approve.
Yeah, we'll move to approve first.
Thank you.
Erickson.
Councilor Kiley, you made a motion to approve. Councilor Erickson made a motion to second that. And now would you like to make an amendment?
Mr. Mayor.
Or Councilor Erpenbach?
I would amend the main motion to add the condition that the applicants shall comply with all tobacco and video lottery laws and regulations, as well as any directives and administrative rules from the South Dakota Lottery Commission as a condition of this license.
Second, Erickson.
The amendment has been recommended, seconded by Councilor Erickson. Councilor Kiley?
Attorney Fifley for quick work, and Councilor Erpenbach, I think, for probably some grammatical checks. Thank you very much.
Roll call vote, please, on the amendment.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Council, thank you. That passed 8-0 on the amendment. Now we've got an amended main motion. Councilor Starr?
Yes, I just want to make a quick comment. Sure. Unfortunately, Mr. Duncan, it's been your opportunity to be part of this process, but I think what we're trying to say as a council is that we take these laws, the state laws, and this process very seriously, and we want to enforce it in a fair manner for all of our citizens in the city who are in this business, and that we want to make sure that they understand that we're going to carry this on for everyone, and it's not specifically targeted towards you, but this gave us the opportunity to do it and send the message very strong to the community that we take these laws and regulations very seriously, and we'll do our part to enforce it.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 7.
Deferred from the City Council meeting of July 5th, 2016, special one-day liquor license for Bates Enterprises to be operated at the Multicultural Center, 515 North Main Avenue, for a wrestling event on July 20th, 2016.
Jamie?
Good evening. This item was deferred because Councilor Starr had some questions for the applicant, and the applicant is present, as well as a gentleman that can also speak about the wrestling event too. So Jason would come forward.
Jason, if you'd introduce yourself, plus your guest, and then Councilor Starr, go ahead.
Sure. My name is Jason Bates, Bates Enterprises. This is Nick Dinsmore, owner of Midwest All Pro Wrestling.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bates, I had a question because it was on our consent agenda, and one of the things that I wanted to do was hear a little bit more about what you're doing at the Multicultural Center, the security plan that goes along with it, that you take care of all the necessities of that, and then a little bit about the wrestling program, because sometimes being in front of the council, you get a chance to tell the community of the programming that you're doing. So I'm interested, and I think the council is.
Sure. I was a former pro wrestler and met Nick years ago, and now I own several bars in Mitchell and one in Alexandria, and I do a lot of side events at the Corn Palace and charity events, cruising for a cause. So I take the liquor sales very seriously. It's how I feed my family. We wristband everyone. Everyone is carded. My employees are very aware of who's drinking and who's wristbanded, and no alcohol leaves the premises. The 3 previous licenses that you granted me, we had 0 issues, and it's a short event. It's pro wrestling as seen on TV, sports entertainment. Nick was with WWE for many years, and moved to Sioux Falls and opened up a school and started doing some shows, and contacted me, and we got together, and I dusted off the boots a little bit, and I retired years ago, but now we're trying to make the event grow, and by selling alcohol at the event, it's made the crowds bigger and bigger and helped him get more students, and something for Sioux Falls. It's the pro wrestling in Sioux Falls is pretty much non-existent, and we're taking it very serious, and it's a short event. It's 2.5 hours at the most, not enough time for people to get rowdy and fully intoxicated. And we're happy to follow any guidelines that you would require us to do to continue doing these events.
Can I ask one more? I'm curious about the sanctioning, or is there a governing body for the wrestling part of it? Is this covered by the state's new sports authority, or not sports authority, but athletic commission, I guess is the...
Pro wrestling is not required by the athletic commission because it's sports entertainment. In some states, you're required to have a boxing wrestling license, like for example Missouri.
Okay.
But as far as I know, South Dakota doesn't require that. No license is required. It's entertainment.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys being here tonight.
You're welcome.
Councilor, great job. Would you want to make a motion to approve this item?
I would gladly move to approve this
Thanks,
item.
Councilor.
Second, Erpenbach.
It's been seconded as well. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 8.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving water tank lease agreements and monopole lease agreement with Brookings Municipal Utilities, Telephone Department, DBA Swiftel Communications at various towers.
Good evening. Darren Fries, Public Works Water Division. Item number 8 is for 4 lease agreements for telecommunication facilities. It's on 4 different sites, 3 of our water tanks, and 1 monopole. All 4 leases are from one tenant. They've been a tenant of ours for 15 years. They've been in good standing as far as payments and liability insurance for those 15 years, and we would appreciate your support of this item.
Folks, is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this item before I turn it over to the council? Councilors?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Buxman, motion to approve item 8, seconded by Council Chair Rolfing. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 9.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the city repealing ordinance number 36-16, authorizing the issuance of its sales tax revenue bonds and other actions related thereto.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. This proposal is being brought forward for a repeal simply to stop the clock. We'll be able to continue the conversation and continue to have the prudent conversations to find workable solutions while maintaining the high level of service we currently have within our city government. Again, this simply stops the clock, not the conversation. The calls I receive on a daily basis and weekly basis when I'm in the grocery store or emails, text messages, oftentimes have nothing to do with the growth of city government, but simply have keep me safe, help me meet ends meet, what services do I have, and fix my roads are the top items that I'm often contacted about. I made it very clear after the first vote in April, with a new council coming on board, that a vote of this magnitude needed to have the voice of the new councilors as well. This will impact the budgets to come, and I wanted to ensure that this council also has a voice in this decision. I've been asked the timeline and why now. I did not choose the October 1st timeframe to sell the bonds, but that was the date that was chosen, and that did go forward. At that time, looking backwards, looking at the charter, which dictates the timeline, this is the time now to have that conversation. There is not time as we see all the different options that could play out after this vote. So I ask you, councilors, to please support this, continue the conversation, and not just say no today, but to continue the conversation. I ask for your support on this, and I would ask to move approval.
Second, Neitzer.
I'm so sorry. There's been a motion to approve item 9 by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Neitzer. Councilor Urbanbach.
Questions, and just sort of rhetorical, but then a direction for staff as well. I want to know if the new council members have heard the entire report and justification for the new building proposal. Have you read the space needs studies, and have you toured all of the existing office spaces? I'd encourage you to do that before the second reading on this. And then if I could ask staff to find at least the video minutes of the reports for the new counselors to watch. So you don't have to read the reports page by page, but at least see the same reports that the sitting council members have seen, and at least spend a fraction of the time that we have spent with this project. You know, it has been something that's been coming for a long time, and it is something that is needed. I would encourage a no vote on reconsideration. I believe we're ready to roll with this. I believe it's the right project at the right time. But I do, if you're going to vote on this, I encourage you to at least have the background on it. Please do your homework.
Councilor Chair Rolfing.
Yes, I would like to invite, if I could, Suet and Quambeck forward to give us a brief presentation on why this building is needed, what brought it about, and why the decision to go forward with the new building was made. If that would be appropriate at this time, I think it would be a good education and information for especially the newer counselors.
Sue.
Hello again. Thank you for taking the time. This is Sue Quambeck, Director of Central Services, here just to give you a brief recap of this City Administration Office building project. The long and short of it is we are out of space. We're out of space. We've been out of space for a while. We have teams that are split up. We're leasing space. We've been leasing space for quite a while, and we have no room for growth. So that's the problem we're trying to fix here. We have been doing due diligence for going on 10 years. Back when Mayor Munson was in office, they did a formal space needs assessment then in 2007. We have since did our own formal space needs assessment in 2012. We researched alternatives, and I'll cover that a little bit more in the next slide, but from 2012 through 2015. We have maximized City Hall space with renovations over the last couple of years. We presented our recommendation to the full council in April of 2015. And then we worked through the summer to do 2 formal RFPs to find the right firm architecturally and construction manager at risk. From that, we were able to put together the building design to fit our needs and a project budget, which we presented in February of 2016. We've been working with the City Council hand in hand all along the way. Just to briefly recap solutions that we have considered along the way, one of which was to maximize the current City Hall, which we have done. We've renovated ground floor, we renovated second floor, and we have maximized every square inch to the extent that we can in the City Hall that we have. It's an 80-year-old building. We've done a lot of rehab to it, and we love it. City Hall is great. We have no plans to abandon it. We've looked at buying an existing building, many different options. And as I talked about in the 4 o'clock meeting today, we vetted through some of the existing buildings, like the DM&E, for example, which might have been a great choice. The CSD campus buildings, the Joe Foss School, 114 South Main. There were several that we considered, but in all instances, there were fundamental issues with the size of the building, the location, parking, or all of the above. We considered many lease options, CenturyLink building, Wells Fargo, many others, but we determined leasing is only a stopgap measure. It is not a prudent means of solving our space needs long term. We looked at perhaps entering into a long-term lease agreement with an option to buy down the road. We considered 8th and Minnesota as a location, for example. We looked at 114 or 115 North Dakota Avenue, which is a building that was recently built just to the west of City Hall. But we determined ultimately we would be better off building it ourselves to our specifications. So after vetting options for 3 years, we arrived at our conclusion. The best solution is to build a new building. And we presented this to the full council in April of 2015. As part of the plan, as I said, we finalized improvements to City Hall to make the best use of the space there. Part of the plan would be to vacate and repurpose some city-owned buildings and discontinuing the leasing. As we all know, long-term leasing doesn't make sense. We've been leasing since 2013, and if we don't build a new building, we're going to continue to lease, and we're going to need to lease even more than we're leasing today. Our plan, our building plan, is the right size for now and the right size for the future. It will meet our needs for 50 years plus. And we want to build it right the first time. We have a nice track record of building with quality materials, materials that will last. We don't want to have to come back in 10, 15 years to replace a roof or an HVAC system. We don't want to build it on the cheap. We want to do it right the first time. It's also important, we think, to have a good quality work environment. It's a very tight labor market, as we all know. Low unemployment. It's important to have decent workspace to attract and retain good quality workforce. And the costs are only going to go up. We all know that. And in terms of the presentation this afternoon, assessing the existing building, the 300 building, it really cannot be an apples-to-apples comparison. Trying to fit our building needs into an existing building is not the same as building a new building to fit our needs. It's just not. We've been working hand in hand with the City Council for 2 years to address this need, answering questions along the way. The council voted to purchase the bonds this fall, and we would ask this council to support that decision. Thank you.
Council Chair, was that adequate?
Very nice, thank you.
Okay.
I would
thank
only,
you.
I would
Council
not add, but I would like to put my 2 cents in worth and just reiterate that we have been studying this since 2012. It's not that we haven't done our homework. We've done our homework all the way around. Other options have been vetted. We've been doing that for about a year and a half or 2 years on different things. Now, whether you choose to believe that information or not is up to you. But I can assure you that the people that are doing the vetting, number one, and the people that are giving us numbers, you can think that they would skew everything to the side of a new building because that would be to their best interest. However, we've got organizations like Tegra who have national reputations that that would not happen with. You just don't, for this small of a project, you don't give up your reputation. They're doing it the right way, folks. We watched the progress, and now is the time to move, get this thing done, and get it built. So let's move forward.
Councilor Kiley.
I have spoken in favor of this project for a number of months now, years actually, since I've been serving on the advisory team as well too. And I do respect the opinion of all of my colleagues. However, I do believe that we have discussed this very thoroughly in the past and in the past few weeks as well, or past few months since our last election. And I do firmly believe that now is the time to act. It's just going to build what we need to serve the citizens of Sioux Falls is just going to continue to escalate in cost. The factoring in the cost of $18 million just for the building alone. And that doesn't factor in the fact that we do already own the property. If we had to purchase property on top of that, it could escalate. But if we delay that just 1 year with a 3% inflation rate, that it's up over $500,000 a year that it costs, and we do run the risk. Right now, we're locked in to our prices, with the companies, with our architect, and with our construction company. We'll lose that locked-in price if we don't go with this now, and it will cost us more. There's a guarantee it's going to cost you more because, I mean, you're going to have at least a half a year. Even if we were to build it immediately after that time, we're going to have a half a year of inflation costs on top of that. And that continues. If we delay it 5 years, it's now escalated almost $3 million on an $18 million price tag, just in a 3-year delay. And I'm sitting here thinking, just think if previous councils and administrations had acted before now, we wouldn't be having this discussion. They've saddled us with this issue, and if we don't pass this now, we will saddle future councils with this issue and future debt. I know that we're all debt-minded. I am too. It's how I lead my life. I try to be as debt-free as I possibly can, and I wish the same for the city too. But if we don't do this now, it's just going to cost us in the long run. And at the rate that the city of Sioux Falls is growing, 3,000 people a year, the equivalent of adding Aberdeen, South Dakota, and Watertown, South Dakota, just since the year 2000, so in the last 15 years, nearly 50,000 individuals added to the city of Sioux Falls. To think that our needs to serve the citizens isn't going to increase, and they need to, yes, even have more personnel. Despite technology, you still need to have individuals that are going to operate and implement the technology. It's inevitable that we're going to need this. And to put it off any longer than we have is just going to cost us more money in the long run. So, again, as Councilor Erpenbach had stated, I would suggest my colleagues to vote no on this issue this evening.
Sorry, Councilor Neisert.
Thank you. There has never been a consensus on this project. It's been contentious from the beginning. There's been 2 tie-breaking votes, the construction manager at risk and 1 for the bonding. This was never a done deal that everybody was for. This decision is going to affect our operational capital budgets for decades to come. It's too big not to have the debate. Let's talk about the cost going up. The cost of everything is going up. Let's say that we do this administration building. We have to pay the bonding. Things are going to get delayed. Construction projects, road projects, they're going to inflate as well. There's an opportunity cost. It's a zero-sum game. There's all this talk about retention. I have yet to see any statistic showing that the city has a retention problem. The opposite is true. The city usually has 50 to 100 applicants for jobs. Nobody is leaving the city employment because of air quality or ceiling height. It's just not happening. There's been a lot of talk about vetting and due diligence. Those words keep coming up over and over. As I've watched this over the years, I haven't seen it. The past councils, many of those councilors didn't see it, and that's why they objected to it. As far as the space needs study, I've read it many times. I've toured all the buildings, and I've watched all the videos. And I will do you one better. You can go to the Greg Neitzer YouTube page. There's a category called Admin Building. I've put up every video having anything to do with the administration building and anything related to it. I've watched all the videos. I encourage all of you to go watch the videos. You'll get the whole history, all the way back to 2012 or 2013. It's very, very helpful. So I'm going to encourage you to put this to a second reading, and let's have the debate. The decision is just too big. Thank you.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
No.
Kylie.
No.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Rolfing.
No.
That is passed 5-3. Item 10.
A resolution vacating the West 25th Street right-of-way from the west right-of-way line of South Summit Avenue to the east right-of-way line of South Prairie Avenue.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself.
Very good. Councilor Staley is going to recuse herself from this item. Chad?
Good evening. Chad Hebe with the Engineering Division of Public Works. We're going to give Heath just a second to get this up here.
Mr. Mayor, while he's bringing that up, could I take a point of personal privilege? One of our staff has a birthday today, and I wanted to at least publicly acknowledge our Assistant City Clerk and wish her a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
No.
Chad?
All right, thank you. This right-of-way is located in central Sioux Falls, adjacent to the University of Sioux Falls campus, and is today an improved street. The petition to vacate was prepared and submitted by the University of Sioux Falls, who is the property owner on the north side and the south side of this right-of-way. On the map in front of you, in yellow is shown the right-of-way that's being requested to be vacated. The blue is right-of-way on their campus that has been vacated in the past. A neighborhood meeting was held on Wednesday, June 29th. 8 neighbors were in attendance, and there was no opposition voiced. If the vacation is approved, a utility easement will not be maintained for public or private uses. USF's plan is to redevelop the right-of-way and existing land into a parking lot. This right-of-way has been completed in accordance with state law and city policy, and engineering supports the vacation.
Chad, thank you. Anybody in the audience want to speak to this item? Councilors?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Erickson.
Council Chair Rolfing's made a motion to approve this resolution, seconded by Councilor Erickson. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 11.
A resolution approving the special assessment roll for construction of sidewalk on East 10th Street from South Bonson Avenue to South Sycamore Avenue.
All right, in 2014, the City Council approved a resolution declaring the necessity to construct sidewalk on East 10th Street and assessing the cost to each lot. The resolution included 16 properties who had the option of installing the sidewalks themselves or having the city install it and assessing the cost to them. 10 of the properties installed the sidewalk. In 2015, the city installed the sidewalk adjacent to the remaining 6 properties, and those properties are shown on your map in yellow. Tonight's resolution assesses the sidewalk costs to these 6 properties. The assessment total is $48,354.85 and ranges from $3,641.83 to $23,621.13. The assessment is for 5 years at 3.5% interest. The first installment with interest will become due with the general taxes on January 1 of 2017. And any portion of this assessment may be paid without interest on or before 30 days of the filing of this resolution. Now, I do want to comment. I was contacted late this afternoon by one of the property owners who had some questions about his assessment total. He did apologize for not bringing it up sooner and waiting for today's hearing. He was not able to make it as far as I know. But my recommendation is that we would remove that property from this assessment. Then I can meet with him and then we can bring it back. So I'll need somebody, if they will, to make a motion to remove the property that's indicated by the number 11R, which is Lot 1, Subdivision Block 53, Linwood Park Addition.
Chad, do you have that in writing for the clerk, please? That specific item that you want amended out.
Do I have it in writing?
Do you have it?
No.
I would need it repeated.
I can repeat it.
Chad, could you just give it, just hand it off to her, please? Thank you. Chad, you're done, right? Chad's done. Anybody want to speak to this item? Councilors? Councilor Staley?
Move approval.
Just want a motion to approve.
With the amendment.
With the amendment, and could you read the amendment that he handed you right now instead of before the meeting?
Excuse me, Mayor, can we have a motion and then an amendment afterwards, please?
Sure. A motion as written. Is there a second on the motion? Seconded by Councilor Vice Chair. Would you want to make an amendment?
I will make an amendment as per the note that was handed to our city clerk.
Do we have to read it into the record, Councilor? Would you read it?
The proposed amendment is to remove 11R Lot 1 Subdivision Block 53 Linwood Park Addition.
Would you second that, Councilor Vice Chair?
Second.
Second the amendment. Very good. Discussion on the amendment. Councilor Staley?
Chad, I've got a question. When we have these sidewalk assessments, what kind of notification does the property owner get?
Through the whole entire process?
Yes.
So we, when we identified this area as needing sidewalk, they would have been notified of the resolution of necessity that the council approved in December, I think, of 2014.
Okay.
So they would have been notified. There was people here to speak at the hearing.
Okay.
The city council approved that resolution of necessity. Following that, we sent them letters giving them to, I think, July 1st of 2014 to install the sidewalk. Now so when we let the contract in 2015, we went out. If a property put the sidewalk in, let's say in August of 14, that's fine. But we get there in 15, we realized there was 6 properties that hadn't. So then we completed the work, and then they were notified of, on the 21st, I believe, we set the date of hearing for tonight. And on the 22nd, then, of June, they received the letters stating that the public hearing would be held tonight, and here's the amount of your assessment.
So they were really aware that, did you ever have a dialogue with them? They said, we're not doing it, you can do it.
Typically, the 10 properties, they will always call and say, I got questions, I want to do this right, can you come out and meet with us, where should we put it? This and that. Then they hire a licensed and bonded contractor, and they put the work in. I asked the guy tonight specifically, when did you get the letter from us notifying you of the hearing tonight? He said it's dated June 22nd. He goes, I thought about it, and I forgot about it until tonight. So he apologized for, but I think it's the right thing to do to pull that out and discuss it further and bring it back.
Do you ever negotiate interest rates with these people?
Interest rates are set by ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Folks, we're still on the amendment. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes. The amendment passed 8-0. Folks, any more questions or comments on the amended main motion? A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes. That has passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item number 12, sorry.
A resolution approving the special assessment role for construction of grading, gravel, asphalt surfacing, curb and gutter with driveway approaches, sidewalk, street lights, storm sewer, sanitary sewer main and service lines, and water main and service lines on South Brandy Avenue from West 85th Street to West 88th Street.
After 7 years of discussion, the three properties we're going to talk about tonight, they're on the east side of Brandy Avenue. They annexed in 2013. Now, just to get you oriented, Brandy Avenue is just south of 85th Street and just to the east of Southwestern Avenue. In 2014, we worked together with these three properties and the property owner on the west side of Brandy Avenue to construct Brandy Avenue up to current city standards at their expense. In 2015, Brandy Avenue was constructed, and 3 of the 4 properties paid their full amount. The 4th property paid $35,000 of their $50,000 assessment and have requested to have the remaining $14,567 assessed. This resolution assesses this cost to the property. Again, it's for 5 years at 3.5% interest. The installment the first installment will be due January 1st of 2017, and any portion of this assessment may be paid without interest before 30 days of filing, and engineering recommends approval.
Folks, anybody want to speak to this item? Councilors? Yes.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Selberg?
Mayor. Just a quick question, Chad. So, like when it says here, when a single property decides not to join a voluntary annexation, what happens?
Well, we're going to talk about the next property in item 14, but the property in yellow up here, and then 2 properties to the south are the one that annexed in.
Okay.
There were some circumstances, some health issues, and some other issues where this gentleman just wasn't comfortable annexing in that time, and so I'll get to...
I'm ahead of you? I'm sorry.
You're ahead of me a little
Okay.
bit. I can go ahead and answer it now if you want.
Sure.
But,
Chad, go ahead.
Okay. So the property to the north, like I said, he didn't annex. He was not a part of this project. But we did install water main and sewer lines, and then the services to his property line. And then we built, if you look, it's hard to see here. He's the property owner on the left. But if you look farther to the south, the curb and gutter line, you can't really see it, but it jogs in.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
His neighbor to the west actually paid for his curb and gutter and street. So the item in 14 will be to do a cost recovery for his portion, which is the water and sewer, which is approximately $30,000. Now, when they annex in, they will be required to widen that street, move the curb and gutter to its ultimate location, and then widen the street as well. So that's how this property owner is involved with the project.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Selberg, is that good? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Council, would anybody want to make a motion to approve this item?
So moved, Rolfing.
Second, Selberg.
Council Chair Rolfing's made a motion to approve item 12, seconded by Councilor Selberg. Councilor Neitzer.
Just a question. So, ballpark, how much are these property owners going to be paid in total for annexation and all of this here? Just...
Okay, the property owner on the west side, they paid approximately $161,000. The property owner that we just talked about tonight, his assessment was just under 50. The property owner, so the property owner in yellow was just under 50. The property south of them was just under, it was about 86,000, and then the property owner south of them was about 18,000.
And how many years do they have to pay this?
3 of the 4 have already paid in full,
Yeah, okay.
and the property we're talking about tonight is paid $35,000 of the approximately $50,000 assessment.
But what's the length of the term that
5
those-
years.
Wow. Okay.
So it's about $2,200 a year.
Okay, thank you.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Thank you. Item 13.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I need to recuse myself.
Councilor Bach is going to recuse herself from this item. Thank you. Chad?
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Item 13 is a resolution approving the special assessment roll for construction of sidewalk on South Solberg Avenue from West 49th Street to West 57th Street.
Chad?
Again, in 2014, the City Council approved a resolution of necessity declaring the necessity to construct sidewalk on South Solberg Avenue between 49th Street and 57th Street and assess the cost to each lot. This resolution included 2 properties, and again, they were given the choice of installing it themselves or having the city do it with the project and assessing the costs. So in 2015, we did reconstruct Solberg Avenue from 49th to 57th, and we did install sidewalks at that time in the locations that didn't have it. The properties in tonight's resolution, if you look on the screen, property 1R is owned by the city. We put that sidewalk in. 2R is what we're talking about tonight, as well as property 3R. The assessment amounts are, for property 2R, $6,601.88, and for property 3R are $30,900.42. Again, the term for this is 5 years at 3.5% interest, with the first installment due on January 1st of 2017, and any portion of this may be paid without interest on or before 30 days of the filing. And engineering recommends approval.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate that. Anybody in the audience want to speak to this item? Councilors?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Erickson made a motion to approve item 13, seconded by Councilor Chair Rolfing. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 14.
A resolution approving the cost recovery roll for construction of sanitary sewer and water main along South Brandy Avenue from West 85th Street to West 88th Street.
I'll go through it again quickly.
Very quickly, Chad. I
This-
think
this is-
we addressed the item before. Very quickly.
It's for their portion of water and sewer costs. It's approximately just under $30,000. That cost recovery, it is just sitting there. And if they never hook into these lines, they will never pay this cost recovery. But if they do, they will pay their fair share of installing the mains in Brandy Avenue.
Great job, Chad. Thank you. Council, or did anybody want to speak to this item? Councilors?
Move to approve, Nitzert.
Second, Starr.
Councilor Nitzert wants to approve this resolution. So does Councilor Starr. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Thank you. Item 15.
A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving diagonal parking on Main Avenue.
Heath, Mark, who's Drew in this one? Heath, welcome, sir.
And off.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Heath Hofteser, Principal Traffic Engineer for the City of Sioux Falls. We received in the engineering office a petition to look at the main avenue parking and to consider installing back-end diagonal parking on the east side of Main Avenue, along with consideration of putting in some southbound sharrows that are in the lane for bikes, which would kind of match into the sharrows that are on Main Avenue farther to the south. And then consideration if, as things would work, as we'd start putting this project together, of installing actually striping a bike lane in front of the back-end diagonal parking on the east side of the roadway also. And I guess the petition that we got into on the east side of the area that's in question, it's between 3rd Street and it goes up to Brookings Street. The area that's looking at putting it in place, there's 10 parcels. The petition included signatures from 8 of the property owners. The other 2 parcels on the east side of the road are city-owned parcels it'd be for the park. And then on the west side of the road, they were able to obtain signatures from 6 of the 10 parcels. There was a couple that they couldn't find at that location. Anyways, that's the information on that. This kind of shows in yellow the area that we're looking at putting in the back-end diagonal parking. And if you guys want, I can pull up on the computer too. I got some details that kind of show the layout of how we would put in the back-end diagonal parking and how we would end up striping it out in place. And if this were to happen, the applicant had indicated that they were willing to assist us in doing it to help speed the process along too. And the reason that we're here today, as with all diagonal parking in the City of Sioux Falls, it requires being passed by the City Council in order to implement any diagonal parking. So, and the applicant's here also.
Very good, very good. Well, anybody want to speak to this item? Okay, welcome.
Thanks. My name is Zach DeBoer. I'm the owner of Exposure Gallery and Studios, and I'm on the Visual Arts Commission for the city. So this project I've been working on with Heath, as we mentioned, is back-end angled parking, which, to my knowledge, we don't have currently in Sioux Falls.
We have one location.
We have one location. So it's not a lot. So back-end angled parking, just for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, I would like to maybe just speak about the pros of back-end angled parking. Like it says, you back into your spot instead of pulling into it. What this would do would allow cars to, when they pull out of the spot, have a clear line of sight and line of vision. And I'm sure many of you have done the slowly back out game on Phillips Avenue. I almost got clipped about twice today. So when you're pulling out, your line of sight is much better. As Heath mentioned, in the design, there is also a bike lane. That bike lane would go in front of the diagonal parking, meaning the bikes would be visible as they kind of came by. Other pros, when you are loading things in and out of your car into your trunk, you're now on the sidewalk. You're not having to walk into the middle of the street to load that new couch in. You're on the safety of the sidewalk. Your kids will unload on the sidewalk side, not on the street side. And this project would add 60 total parking spaces to the existing parking spaces along that stretch of road and eliminate a unnecessary turning lane. It's a project that I'm working on to help revitalize Uptown. It's a part of the downtown area that needs a little bit of love, and I think a project like this will encourage that, will encourage developers, will encourage property owners to take a little bit more pride in their properties and really start to see some movement that happens up there.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it. Thanks for coaching Sioux Falls, too, on how to do this. Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on this topic? Councilors?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Kiley.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve item 15, seconded by Councilor Vice Chair Kiley. Councilor Urbanbach.
Thank you. Heath, do you have pictures? Can you show us? Yeah. I'm in favor of it, but it scares me. Backing up is not my favorite thing to do, right?
have to do it going in or going out.
Right? Yeah, you're right.
The left side of the screen is the example of what we've sketched up for what the area is going to possibly look like when we have everything in place. And on the right side of the screen is the signage that we put in place and on the couple spots that we do have back in angle parking, kind of following what Des Moines and a lot of other cities have done for the informational signage that they try to put in place for helping to educate the public on how to do it. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Starr.
Mr. DeBoer, I want to say thank you. This is how city government is supposed to work. Our citizens are supposed to be involved. You got a chance to fight City Hall, and you didn't even have to fight us. So we've got something good. It's a great idea. I think it's going to be good for our city. So thank you for all the work that you've done putting this together.
Thank
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes?
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes. That is passed 8-0. Item 16.
A resolution authorizing the City of Sioux Falls to gift to Hartford Area Fire and Rescue, Inc., Garrettson Volunteer Fire Department, and the EMS Agency for the Sioux Empire Fair Association, Inc., 3 LifePak 12 defibrillators.
Thank you so much. Did anyone want to speak to this item? Any from our fire team, or we're just going to give them up here? Looks like we are.
Let's give them up.
Well, very good.
Move to approve Erpenbach.
Thank you, Councilor Mbach.
Second, Selberg.
Thank you, Councilor Selberg. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I got to do a roll call vote. We just can't give away 3 LifePak 12 defibrillators. We can't just give them away. We need to have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes?
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Thanks for your support on that, City Council. That's great. That passed 8-0. Any further discussion? All in favor of ending this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Make it a great, great night, Sioux Falls. Thanks, Council.